Welcome everyone to our webinar. It is the Transport Program Recharge, and this is part 2. So we are talking about engaging more fosters and adopters. So thank you again for being here. Welcome. My name is Clare Callison, and I'm the Maddie's National Director of Pet Supply and Demand for American Pets Alive. And I'm here with my lovely co-presenter, Kelly.
I'm Kelly Duer. I'm the foster care specialist for Maddie's Fund. And we also have Faith Wright here, the Director of Operations for Palm Valley Animal Society. And she'll be walking us through a little video. We said we were going to give you a quick tour of PBAS, and Faith is going to help us with that. I'm going to give you a trigger warning, though. If you have a tissue near you, grab it. We try to make this video really upbeat, but it is kind of, it can be tough. And it's very fast. So
yeah, the video is definitely fast. If I could only walk the campus as fast as this video is, my life would be much easier. So this is our location here on Trenton Street. It's our main location. And yes, this is really one shelter, this whole entire thing. So as we're walking here, this is all general housing and intake. And then we still go to some more general housing. We do have tarps down because it is an outdoor shelter and it's very cold right now down here. I know that sounds weird, cold. So we don't always have tarps up everywhere, but for right now we do. And this is more general housing. And then here's the front of our adoption building. You'll get to see our pretty adoptions lobby. It's very welcoming. We have lots of visitors come through. And then we go into our puppy. This is our puppy adoption room. We have quite a few puppies, as you can see. And then we go over here to we have what we call adoptions A side and B side. And every animal at our shelter is considered adoptable. It's just that we're limited on space to house them. So we try to rotate through as much as we can and get all the animals up and up, in the locations to be viewed at. This is our quarantine area and our over area for staging 2. And then here's some more. These are what we call runners. These are outdoor kennels that can house 2 animals per kennel. We do have a very giant play yard area, as you can see. We do play group at least twice a day right now. We were short-staffed during COVID, but we've got her back now, so she's been able to do our play groups. Possums, we no longer have possums. They're able to live out in the world free now. This is all, again, still continued, just general housing. There's every single kennel is full. These trucks line up probably in this type of distance at least 3 times a day. It looks like this. And my staff are just running through trying to get everything unloaded. This is what we call our staging 1. This is our single dog area. We will not put 2 dogs in here, and we have put dividers in between so they don't see each other anymore, so there can no longer be fence fighting. And then these are more general housing rows. You'll see these they go on and on and on. We have 6 of those total. And then here's our puppy isolation. This is where we're just testing puppies for air swabs for distemper. They might have shown you or I. And urgent pets, a lot of people think that means that these are the animals that are to be euthanized, and it's not. They're getting their PCR tests as well. So we hold them separately. That way, if they do have distemper, we're not spreading it to the adoptable animals inside. And then due to COVID, we were not able to have our adoptions Canada open right now. We were able to just recently reopen those, so that's good. And you'll see we have animals and animals and animals. We are no longer allowing any animals to be more than 2 per kennel unless they're a litter of puppies like this or mom and puppies. We, due to overpopulation for Sydney, due to overpopulation for a while, we had some cages that had 5 and 6 animals in it, and we will not allow that ever again. It's just not humane. Here's my little Pebbles. Pebbles is a very long stay with us, just because she had hip dysplasia really bad, but she's better now. And Leonardo came in with his 3 brothers, but all his brothers left and he didn't, so he's sad there by himself. So that's my shelter. There's a lot of animals here, but they're happy animals. They have a chance, and that's what we're looking for. So any rescue that wants to work with us, we have an amazing rescue team. They will work nonstop with you. They will send you working documents that you can see the links on. They provide you all of them that we know about. We can do playgroup evaluations and videos. So it's a very hardworking rescue team that wants to be able to partner with every single person in the United States. We'd love that. So thanks for watching our short video.
Thank you so much, Faith. It gets me so much that Faith sent me probably 15 minutes of video, which we ended up cutting down into 3 minutes. And the fact that you know those animals' names just by seeing them, it's beautiful.
We pride ourselves in walking the kennels every single day, minimum of one time a day. We lay our eyes on every single animal, check their health and safety. And so every single animal is viewed every day. I usually see them at least 2, maybe 3 times a day, but every day everybody walks the rounds for them.
That's awesome. So the transport media kit, we worked with Faith and with the rest of Palm Valley Animal Society on creating this, which is kind of tailored right to them. There's a section of about us. There's things about their greatest challenges, but written in a way that they, approve of. Also tagging them on social media, having links to all of their social media things, and information for transport partners, transport options, and things like that. And other ways supporters can help. If you're a transport partner, it doesn't mean you can't be, helping with donations or things like that. So this, we have a handout, and it is linked on the handout, and I believe, PVAS Transport Media Kit is right there in the chat. So you are welcome to take this and make it your own. If you have an organization that is a source shelter or a receiving shelter, to help, make that easier.
I will jump in, Kelly, if you don't mind, and say that, yes, absolutely. This is definitely for Palm Valley, but it can be customized. So we just wanted, it could look like it be a website, be a page on your website, or it can actually be a PDF or something, but just somewhere to start, because we know in the beginning of every partnership, there's a lot of questions back and forth. I've seen a lot of MOUs from the receiving end, but not so much from the source shelter. So I think this is a great tool. One of the things, just to put things into context, and thanks again, Faith, for your time and sharing that video. It's really, really powerful. And I think a great example of a way that you could bring the reality of the shelter to your partners. I think, the shelter walkthrough and a quick iPhone video does the trick a lot of times. So we wanted to, after the part 1, which if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But part 2, we really wanted to dive into why finding more fosters and adopters, as well as retaining and growing your current base, is so important. I wanted to just have us review a very common scenario that often happens. And this is definitely not just about dogs. Certainly with cats, this happens a lot. But if you think about a partnership, just sort of starting out, a transport partnership, and you start talking about, you ask that question, if you are a receiving destination shelter, you ask the question of, what do you all need help with? What animals or what type of pets do you all have at your shelter that you're trying to put on transport? Then on the flip side, the source shelter might be asking the destination, well, what type of animals can you accept? And so often those things do match up, which is great, but there's a lot of circumstances where they just don't match up. And I've had many conversations where, I'll say we have all types, we have small, medium, large size dogs, adult cats, kittens. Often the response, has been, and it's getting better, but historically it's been very difficult to find partners that could take medium and large size dogs. This year, I will say, we know transport has been down in the last year, in 2021. It sort of felt like conversations from 5 to 10 years ago that I was having, where many organizations were struggling, which is why we're doing this part 2 transport webinar. And they were going back to saying, we really can only help you with small dogs right now, or fully vaccinated puppies that have been quarantined for 2 weeks. And the reality was, that ability to help wasn't fitting our need. And I understand transport might not be realistic to put a bunch of large breed dogs on a transport without any variety. I'm a number one advocate for variety on transport, but that can be very concerning in a lot of ways when those things don't match up. The need to save animals, the need for the pets to move out, and those certain types of pets, and not having an outlet. So we are really focused on this part 2 on how do we examine our programs, how do we examine our current operations to not just sort of sit in that disjointed, well, we can't help you with that population. That's not what we do. I will say I don't know a single organization in the country, no matter how big you are, how much you've been transporting, that doesn't have room for improvement. So it just challenge everyone, even if this might feel like review or no, we've done everything we absolutely can. we are hoping that everyone can kind of pull it all back and let go and just really dive in and have an honest look at our programs and see where we can improve. Because again, the animals that are needing saving, say in 5-10 years from now, it's not all going to be just small dogs. So we have to look at how we can flex and become more able, and our programs are just a little bit more functional, that we can help a larger variety of animals.
First thing you want to do is analyze your data and then rally your troops. Get your supporters excited about what you're doing. Tell your supporters the why. And I really like this Facebook group post that I saw the other day. It's from a foster coordinator in Cincinnati. But she's asking for 3 more dog fosters to come that day. And she really gives the why. She says, below are some of them in need. We have -6 kennels currently. We need to get back in the positives. She just makes it really clear as like the why, and here are the pets that you need, that we need you to help us with. And then also look at your data on foster and adoption. Where are they? Where do you need those numbers to be? And then it will help you make a plan to get you there. Pull out all the stops. Okay. So I went through and looked at so many studies while I was researching this. There are a bazillion studies on response time. So they're not necessarily foster related, but they are for pretty much every area. One study found that businesses that respond to leads within 5 minutes are 100 times more likely to close the sale. And so we take this information and make it as easy and quick to adopt or foster as possible. Some of you may have barriers that are state mandated, like you can't get around. Like Georgia has a law that requires home visits every 6 months for every foster. If you can't avoid having a wait, make sure to engage them. And either way, engage them as they are waiting. There was a study in the UK that they sent a series of day in life emails from an active officer to candidates for the Army Reserve. And just by sending those emails, the day in the life emails, and engaging them during the waiting process, they were able to double the number of applicants completing the application, which is really amazing. I think one of the things that was notable was that they were sent from the name of a real and named officer in the Army Reserve. So it was like very personal in keeping them engaged. So other things you can do to do this are maybe send them a video shelter tour, send a message from your leadership, have them get contacted by a mentor, invite them to a Zoom training or get together, or a social media group, and you can engage them there. And Claire, and should we do?
Oh, absolutely. And I would just also add too that, when we are looking at removing barriers, just to kind of, circle back on that, I think the things we think about is like open adoptions and looking at our adoption questionnaires. And that is crucial and very, very important. In fact, we had a really good webcast through American Pets Alive last week. You can also access it from the Maddie's Pet Forum, and just email me if you don't find the link. But basically, yes, your actual policies are very important to look at, but also your process, looking at your adoption process through the eyes of the person that's on the other end, right? Trying to interact with the organization. I saw recently a question come up online about, do you make it mandatory for every person that has a dog with either a foster or an adoption to come and actually physically come for a meet and greet? So that's a process that, definitely could be a roadblock. We have busy schedules and people have children and balancing, and a lot of people's personal dogs don't really love leaving the home, let alone going to a shelter setting. So that could be a barrier, a huge barrier, not alone, just when we think about time too, the time it would actually physically take to set that up. I'm certainly not against, personal meet and greets with resident dogs. If a dog has on either side has had a history of challenges with other dogs, for example, but using it as a case by case basis and not a flat, overarching policy that could potentially be a barrier and slow down your process. So just wanted to add that in there.
And the poll, if we could launch that. All right. So when is the last time you and or your team formally scrutinized your entire foster process for barriers? So your choices are in the last 3 months, in the last 6 months, in the last year, 1 to 2 years ago, 2 years ago, two or more years ago, never, and I don't know. So I'll give everybody a second here to respond.
And while you're filling that out, we definitely want to preface this as it's not you can be honest, it's not a place of shame. I think a lot of organizations struggle a bit with this. So put your honest answer down. It's just interesting to see.
So in the last 3 months, 18%, in the last 6 months, 3%, in the last year, 24%, which is actually pretty good. 1 to 2 years ago, 18%, 2 plus, 6%, never, 3%, and I'm not sure, 27%.
That's interesting. Thanks for answering that. I'm actually surprised on the not sure when you last looked at your foster process. So it might be for the reason if it's not your department or, you're just not sure if you've ever looked at it. So that's really great. One of the things when we're talking about, expanding our foster bandwidth and our adoption bandwidth is something we might not always think about, but a lot of us, depending on how big your organization is, you might be doing every job yourself, jack of all trades, and there's no set departments or teams. You kind of wear a lot of hats and you do that work. So cross training might be the name of the game for you. That's in your job title and you're required to do that. I think for organizations that have certain job descriptions and say you are a foster coordinator or you process adoptions, or you work with enrichment and the behavior side of things, or you just focus on cats versus dogs. Depends where you're sort of aligned and where your knowledge is, but the skills of cross-training can't be minimized. It is so important. I think one of the best things that an organization can do is that this idea that we are always promoting foster, always promoting adoption, no matter what your position is in the organization, that's part of your daily mantra almost. When anytime you're interacting with the public in any sort of capacity, that this is always top of the mind and top of the conversation. One of the helpful things that I've seen in other organizations work really well is adoption counselors sometimes struggle when talking about certain behaviors, and it can be a little bit scary. It can scare off adopters or potential fosters if you're presenting information about behavior with cats or behavior with dogs in a way that can alienate the adopter or the foster. You might be also using shelter lingo, which the general public doesn't understand. We don't understand some of our kind of inside talk. One of the resources we're sharing with you in the guide after this is called, from Austin Pets Alive, it's called the Behavior Terminology Document. So you will have access to that. And it was a document that our behavior manager at the time, created to share with our adoption counselors of these are the behaviors we see, everything from, territorial aggression to resource guarding. And this is how we talk about it to the general public. So it is a guide that I know our staff uses daily. I've shared it widely. I think it's really helpful to have a guide on how to talk about these behaviors. If you're here right now, this is a great start, monthly webinars, making sure your staff always has access to kind of level up their knowledge. And I will say the vast majority of these resources, there's no cost. It's free. It might just take time to make a little, Google sheet of helpful presentations or resources that are out there, and we're happy to compile them if you're looking for something specific to share with your team. But so important to just continue that growth. And also when we talk about, say the foster side or adoption counselors, I think it can be a little bit, funny and humorous, but I think it's really helpful to do sort of role play situations. So if there's a long stay cat with maybe some medical challenges or a dog that is exhibiting tricky behavior, almost doing like a practice sort of role play of how you would present that to a foster and to an adopter, where they're not scared away, but they hear the message, they hear what's needed to have happen in the home. But that a lot of times helps with sort of retooling your email responses or your phone calls. So those are just a few tips. And again, that's might seem a little bit opposite of what we're talking about today, but that cross-training perspective is just so important in organizations.
Then you're going to want to look at your pet marketing. And I feel like I've done a lot of consults lately with organizations who have said, how can we get more pets into homes? And especially how can we get more big dogs into homes? And what what I've been finding is that more often than not, the answer is super simple. It's just having that like checklist to go through. So one organization, they were having trouble getting big dogs adopted, and I looked at their website and looked at the first 12 dogs on their website. 4 of the 12 had a biography, and 9 of the 12 had a photo that wasn't the intake photo. So it was very, one of the major recommendations, of course, was to go through your pet profiles and make sure everybody has a complete profile and then it's updated. So one of the things, so in this slide, we're talking about getting to know your pets. If you have pets, say you have long stay pets, and sometimes they've been there for a while, but they haven't been on a field trip or on an overnight or something, definitely get to know them individually, and find out how they behaved outside the shelter if you can. What are the fosters and volunteers saying about them? Their quotes can be very, very effective in marketing them. This on the left is a dog from Memphis Animal Services who went on a field trip. And the whole thing is basically a quote from the foster who took him. And what was awesome is it's super easy for the person who was doing the social media, but also it shows this social proof. It shows that the person who met him, what they're saying about him, and that they, enjoyed being with him. Also, if you have pets who are showing stress-induced behavior, learn the very early signs of that. Of behavioral deterioration based on stress, and get them into at least a field trip or an overnight before their behavior starts to deteriorate, because that can be the information with which you find them a longer term foster or adopter. Having the information of how they behave in a home before their behavior at the shelter is off-putting to fosters and adopters can be is very, very important to have. My cat behind me has an Instagram account, and one day I got a DM from somebody who is a volunteer at this one shelter, and she said, "There's a cat at our shelter who has been at our shelter for 11 years, and he's incontinent, and can you help me market him?" And I was like, "Sure." So the first thing I did was look up his profile, and I noticed something kind of shocking. This is kind of an extreme case, but if you look down at the bottom, if you can read any of that, it says, "Meet Bud, stop overlooking this wonderful cat. A leftover kitten, Bud is still active and curious despite his bowing knees. His antics are amusing, and he is the only one left of his homeless litter of 8 given names of beer." The bio had not been updated for 11 years. It was the most extreme example I've ever seen. So when you have pets, especially pets who are long stays, make sure you're updating those bios regularly. Especially if you have dogs, it can be really scary for adopters to take home a dog that the shelter doesn't really know anything about. So having a complete and up-to-date online profile can make a huge, huge difference. So look at their profiles. Do they have all the things they need? Is anything missing? Does anything need to be updated? And then also look at social media. Are you utilizing social media as much as you can? Are you on 4 platforms, but really only posting consistently on 2 of them? How can you get some volunteer support so that you can post consistently on all of them? Or even, and then also having pets with longer stays. Have they been featured recently? Some organizations have checklists or spreadsheets that show this, so that they can make sure that the pets get marketed on a regular basis. For foster in particular, talking about foster as much as adoption in your communications, all of them. What we've found is that the shelters who have the largest foster programs are talking about foster in at least 33% of their posts, on average, 33% of their social media posts. And what they're doing is they're talking about foster. And so the people who are reading their posts it's becoming normal to foster. when they're talking about it, and when they're saying this pet is available for foster or adoption, or they're telling a story about a pet in foster. And it doesn't always have to be something that's necessarily focused right on foster, but working it in so that you are talking about foster as much as adoption, and making it clear to everyone that foster is important to you and it is needed. Two organizations, if you want to see a really good example of this, are the Lifeline shelters. So Fulton County and DeKalb County Animal Shelter, and then also Memphis Animal Services. They are both, the last time I checked, they were both doing well above 45%, I believe. So they're really good examples of how to talk about foster all the time, and in a way that is that people engage with.
I love too, Kelly, how you plugged the volunteer roles, because I think the number one reason I've heard that groups are not able to regularly update bios, or they sort of lose track of certain animals and they sort of stay in the system for a while, is just lack of time. And I think with short staffing, that's probably even more apparent. But would you be a proponent of, I think it's a great opportunity, right, for like volunteers that work from home. It seems like you could create a guide, and that would be a fun thing for them to do. They don't even have to even live in your city or town. They can do this all remotely, it seems like, right?
Yeah, it's a great job for volunteers to help with. They can create posts and just send them to you for, you can edit them and post them up if they're not allowed to use your actual social media. It can be really helpful also to have some type of like Facebook business manager is where you can schedule in advance, so that they could put something in there and then you could check it out and schedule it for a certain time. That also helps you to kind of be able to utilize all those social media platforms, at least Facebook and Instagram in that particular case, to be able to schedule things on different platforms without having to do it, multiple times.
Yeah, that's great. And I've also heard of like with the fears of having volunteers have access to your shelter software, having them sign a confidentiality agreement, and just you could even conduct sort of an interview process like you would hiring a new staff member when you appoint a volunteer marketing lead. And we're happy to share that resource if it's helpful. So yeah, great. And I think we have, I'm so bad with the polls. I'm so sorry, Kelly.
Oh, good.
I think we have
too.
Perfect. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do you have a protocol to ensure that pets' profiles online are updated regularly? Yes, no. We're working on it, and I'm not sure. So is it like a protocol might be you have certain volunteers that are in charge of bios and, posting the, bios and stuff online, or some type of process for making sure that new pets have bios, and pets who've been there for a while have bios that are up to date. So far, yes, 28%, no, 44%, in progress, 19%, and 9%, I don't know. There is a course in development on Maddie's University that is basically how to coordinate volunteers to help your marketing team, and protocols such as this are discussed in that course. I am not sure when it's going to be out.
Okay, so for adoptions, we're talking a lot about foster and adoptions. One of the things that's so important, and I mentioned it earlier, is just obviously the barrier busting, right? Going through your process, start to finish, from the moment, the first potential inquiry comes to you all the way to what happens when you send them home, and after, looking at your process every step of the way through the eyes of a potential adopter. What is the experience like? If they are still walking into your facility, is the first greeting to them, dogs are that way, cats are that way, don't put your fingers in the kennels? Like, is it a barking order? First impressions are so important. It's like a first date. You are setting the tone of how that interaction is going to go. And so looking at each and every process and how you can improve and doing regular audits of it is so important. I think a lot of times, we all do adoption promotions at some point or the other, but I think it's important to note that you can plan an event at any time. So if you are a receiving organization or a sending shelter, and it's not near a holiday, or it's not a clear the shelters, just look outside. Is it cold out? Is it rainy? Like Casey Pet Project, yes, it was the new year in January, and they were like, what are people doing right now? New Year's resolutions. And so they played with it. Definitely bonus points if you are using humor, because those are the things that go viral. But anytime you can plan an event. They have those funny calendars, like every day is like a national ice cream day or pizza day or something. If you don't have the ability to waive or reduce your fees, we're 100% all about, any sort of promotions you can do there. But if that is a financial no-go for you, there's a lot of creative ideas. Like I saw recently, a lot of giveaways people are doing, asking community businesses to donate gift certificates or something. You might have brand new nice dog beds or cat beds that you wouldn't dare give, like the really plushy ones that would just get destroyed in the kennels. Maybe those get set aside for some of these giveaways. The spin the wheel idea is a great idea. If there's any local food truck that wants to pull up on a Saturday, free tickets to local sports games or concerts, whatever you can do in terms of like that community partnership. And then extending hours can be really helpful. I know that, we think about the 24-hour adopt-a-thons. You don't even have to go that extreme or even midnight. Same shelter, Casey Pet Project, I saw when they got really full. I saw that they just opened their hours to 8:00, like a Friday frenzy, they advertised it as, which that gets the media, that gets people excited. So it wasn't necessarily reduced fees, that it was just like, hey, we're extending our hours or opening our doors, come help us. So I think, as a destination partner, this tactic can sometimes get overlooked. We are daily, probably as a destination, getting pleas of animals that you cannot help. And that's hard for morale. It's hard. It can keep your organization just feeling like, it's hopeless because we just don't have enough fosters or we don't have enough adopters. Using these tactics, even if you don't have a ton of animals on site, but you have this huge waiting list of pleas that are coming to you of, can you take a transport? Can you help us? Using these kind of old school strategies of going back to the basics and really getting creative and pushing your adoption promotions is super helpful. Also having, and I'm happy to share this as well, but if you get into a space crisis, and this is both for source and destination shelters, but again, having a checklist of things you do, creating an SOP when we get to code red or code yellow, what is our organization going to do? If we have, say 100 animals being pled to us and we can only help a very small portion, what is our SOP? What are our next steps that we are going to deploy essentially to be able to help these animals? So we're not just sort of sitting and feeling stagnant and helpless, but we actually have a plan moving forward. So it sometimes, it seems so basic, but having that checklist is super helpful because a lot of times we forget the basic things we've always known, like let's run a fun adoption event. This was that Friday night frenzy I was talking to you all about. So you can see, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. They did $25 adoptions. And again, they targeted the animals that needed out the most or needed the most help on dogs over 25 pounds. So just be creative. Again, I've seen a lot of things on social media. I've seen your promotions. Everyone's doing a great job at that, but this is just a gentle reminder to not forget the basics and to get creative when we get in a tough place. I will say last on this slide, we do have in your resource guide, 2 urgent checklists essentially. Or 2 sort of articles out there, how to deal with a space crisis and how to put out emergency pleas. So I know last time we talked a lot about that urgency, but we have 2 different blog articles for you all to review after this, if that's helpful. All right, and keeping them moving, that fast flow through is so important. If you think about it, even if you aren't in a shelter like Palm Valley that is always in a space crisis, but you are more of a destination shelter that has the ability to bring in animals, even a delay in your ability to move them out from intake to adoption also decreases the amount of lives that you can bring in and save. So one of the things that both Kelly and I absolutely love with both fosters and adopters is the matchmaking strategy. A lot of places do not have money to allocate to actually make, a position of a staff matchmaker. Of course, that would be wonderful to have, in your budget if you have that ability. But if not, you can use volunteers, and there's a great way that you can implement that with volunteers. I use this cat concierge example from Austin Pets Alive. I absolutely love this flyer, and this little bow tie is so cute. And that now it's nice that there are part-time staff dedicated to it, but the program first started with volunteers only. So it's just a basic spreadsheet of all the cats, and you can just focus on, say, your 10 top 10 long stay dogs or cats, or you can look at your entire population in a spreadsheet. And when people are inquiring, asking what they're looking for, kind of what their home setup looks like, and then having that sort of individual matchmaking approach. Recently, in Austin, we moved more towards not matchmaking every single person. There are some people that will come in and they have other dogs, they have cats, they've got kids, they have a busy life, and they are looking for a pretty easygoing, say, dog or cat to take home. We would, or a puppy or something. We don't feel that they might need a lot of that sort of hand-holding through the process. They could probably walk through the kennels and find someone relatively easy, or on our website. But for someone that comes in with a really unique home setup, say they don't want any other dogs, they just want one dog, and they don't have any children and no plans of it necessarily, they don't have cats, right? That might be a perfect adopter for a dog that doesn't get along great with other dogs, or has trouble meeting strangers, or has had trouble in the past meeting children. So, really hand-holding those people, rolling out the red carpet for them, and making sure they have a good experience, and making sure that they're meeting your sort of longer stay, or potentially dogs that fit and cats that fit that criteria. A couple examples that we're sharing with you in the resources is Gateway Pet Guardians. They launched a unicorn foster squad. It's complete. If you are a unicorn foster, it's complete with t-shirts and local promotion, coupons, good deals. They do giveaways. They made it like a cool kids club, essentially. And so the Unicorn Foster program is really, really great. And we are linking that resource. So if it's something that you think you could bring into your organization, I know they'd be happy to talk to you about it. And they've done presentations on it as well. Dallas Animal Services, they are a giant shelter, and you might be a smaller rescue, but I thought their matchmaking program with adopters is something that if they can do it on their large scale, anyone can do it. So it's pretty simple. They made a page on their website and allowed people to set an appointment if they were having trouble finding the right match, or if they had a certain sort of home setup, then they would proactively reach out to them, schedule an appointment, and then bring up, a list of the dogs or the cats that would be in their system, and, do more of a personalized approach. So I know I keep saying it, but I can't say it enough, but the excellent customer service is so important. I mean, that's really just what matchmaking is. It's just providing this like top-notch customer service experience. I always think of it as like if Starbucks and Subway, like when you walk in and they greet you or something, like that is my dream for the future for animal welfare. Like, we should be greeting people with smiles. They've come here today to do a good thing and to save a life, and we want to make it as easy and as pleasurable as possible. One of the other things that sometimes gets overlooked is having a post-adoption feedback survey. So for all of you that are doing this and taking the advice, kudos to you. But I think one way to really look at your process and see where there's room for improvement is simply you could do a Google form, and for every adopter, you can send them a feedback survey. You could do that also with fosters. I know Kelly would definitely recommend doing that, and feeling where the pain points are. Where did you exceed? Where were you excelling? And where were you falling behind, or where's room for improvement? So it is sometimes hard to take that criticism and that constructive criticism, but it's so important to hear people out. And if they say, you know what, it was really difficult to reach someone, or it took days to get a response, or I felt, uncomfortable, people weren't friendly during my adoption appointment. Like that's really important information to hear and to really take to heart and see how you can improve. And one last thing, I don't know if you can see it. I'm happy to share a copy of it, but just on the bottom of the screen, I did mention a spreadsheet. So this is all the volunteers use for our cat team here. So the date of the request coming in, this is for somebody, a cat concierge. So if someone's inquiring about a cat, the date that they actually got a response. So their average wait time, you can auto populate this so you don't have to manually enter everything. The name of the client, what they were looking for. So this particular person was looking for a dog-friendly cat that would get along with dogs, and then a list of all the cats we've recommended for them. So again, they take it or leave it. Maybe they find a different cat. We track that as well. But it's important to see, who they're being introduced to, and it allows us to introduce our longer stay cats and dogs first in the process.
Okay. So I looked through a lot of information on foster care for humans when I was researching for this. Sorry, my dog is making a funny noise. She's sleeping. Two of the things that they do that major strategies are retention, which I decided not to focus on in this, but also word of mouth. Word of mouth, they do a really good job of getting the fosters to help them do their recruitment. So on the right here, this is another Cincinnati, it was on a Cincinnati Post, but there's this foster who basically does a little, sorry. I'm sorry, my dog is distracting me. They do a little, write up, and they put it on the posts that talk about foster. And it's kind of like that social proof again. And, it's somebody talking about foster. It's in the comments on a lot of their posts. And I think it's really, really cool. So some of the things that they use, so my husband and I fostered our kids for 6 weeks before we adopted them. And they really did a great job at facilitating word of mouth. So they gave us a little sheet, and it was like, here's how to have a potluck with your friends and neighbors and talk about our program. And they asked families to speak with their church groups, with their youth leagues, and with any group that they're interested in, and talk to them about fostering. They also had a letter, and it was 2005, so social media wasn't really a thing quite yet. But they gave us all like a template letter that was like, take this letter, make it your own and send it to your friends and family. And so they made it really easy for us to become recruiters for them. And one of the things that we learned in our market research is that people do listen to the people that they know. If you're a friend of theirs, they will take your word is important, and it can help to make people more comfortable trying something out. I looked at some studies that show the messenger matters at least as much as the message itself. So somebody, a foster talking to a friend can be in some ways more effective than if you talk to that friend personally. So in a couple of studies, one of them, investment bank workers were 6 times more likely to donate to charity if asked by a champion of the cause in their immediate team, compared with those who received a similar request from just corporate citizenship. So if they knew the person, they were much more likely to donate. So some things you want to do, set the expectation, ask for their help, but also set the expectation, fosters, one of the things we really, need from you is to talk to your networks and help us to recruit. Give them examples of ways to share, and show them, okay, you can do it this way. You can, put these comments on some of our main page posts, give them a platform to share information. One of the things that we did after we fostered our children, so they used to ask us to come to orientations and talk to people who are interested in fostering. And so we get up there, and of course I would start crying immediately. But we would talk to people about our experiences. And that was really, really effective at getting people to want to try fostering. Also try using incentives if you have any, if you're able to get donations, or even, naming a litter of kittens can be an effective incentive. Whoever, brings whoever is the person who helps bring a foster in the month of May, gets an entry into this raffle or something like that. Those types of things can be helpful.
I know I started fostering because my friend was fostering. So yeah, word of mouth, definitely.
So this one, separating marketing and adoption counseling. This is something I'm not going to talk. I could probably talk about this topic for like a whole 6 new webinars, but I'm just going to go really quick here. The only 3 things we market with caveats other than pets are cigarettes, alcohol, and drugs, and that's because they can kill us. In the child welfare system, either way, it is critical to be completely transparent with adopters, whether they're human or pet. They need to know what has happened in the pet's past that you know of. They need to know of any, behavior issues. However, you can have a protocol for disclosing this information in a way that mimics the child welfare system. So one of the things that they do is they for public narratives, all of their public, or they should be positive. Any behavioral issues, history, things like that, they're all disclosed one-on-one on a continuum. So, the further the person gets in the adoption process, the more they learn about the child, so that when they do adopt, they've seen everything. But it is done in a way that keeps the privacy, intact. And it's also more like the way that we form relationships as well. We have a webcast on this. I could keep talking about it forever, but I really, if you are at all interested, please take a look at the webcast. That is, we go over it all there. And I think next slide.
Okay, and we talked a lot last time about urgency and having a shared, collective sense of urgency. So even if your partner is states away and they are going through a space crisis, like their urgent situation is also your urgent situation. So just a few tips on this. And again, we are sharing resources and a whole article of a checklist you can do, which I think is super helpful. But here's one example from San Antonio Pets Alive. And a few things that I loved about this post is they were super full and they partner with their city municipal shelter, like many of you all do. So they're a nonprofit rescue partner, primarily using foster homes for housing, very little actual brick and mortar space. So the city shelter was full. They were trying to help. And this was one of their posts that they did. A couple of things I liked is the little, and Kelly taught me this, was the little urgent sort of emojis that you can put on the top of the post. I loved how they gave a concrete number of how many fosters they needed. I feel like, and they kept updating throughout the day. Okay, we've got 14 of these dogs fostered. We're at our final push, like help us with these last 3. I've seen other organizations do a whole sort of photo collage, and over that they say fostered, and then you can see the ones on the collage that are not. So you're keeping your followers up to date on the progress. And so it's real-time urgency. Please help us. One of the other things that I really liked is the photo they used was really high quality, really captured the eyes of one of the dogs, one of the puppies that needed a foster and needed saving. They had the email contact, and the website is there. It's all easily shareable. So there isn't just a random photo of a puppy just floating around the internet, but you actually have a call to action. So where to go to help. And I love having that contact information in multiple places. So not only was it in the post, it was in every single picture. And then celebrate the wins, right? We understand this sort of fear that, too much urgency, too many of these posts could create like a crying for wolf situation where people get numb to it. I will say that your community will step up, and we have many organizations around us that are doing this weekly, because the reality is every week it's urgent and every week is an emergency situation. Finding different ways to message that out, I think, is crucial. So you're not just copying and pasting the same post. but also making sure to celebrate the wins and thanking your community for stepping up. So there's some bit of closure. It's hard when there's like a 3-day push and you need to get a ton of adoptions or a ton of fosters, but then, let your community sort of celebrate that win, the breath that you all take collectively afterwards when it's over, and share the happy stories, because I feel that that's what gets people really sort of addicted to helping you and wanting to foster more. So just a few urgent tips. Again, more, blogs and articles that we're sharing with you as a resource for this. But one example that I wanted to bring up.
Okay, advanced recommendations. One of the things that I found in child welfare is that they use, other than word of mouth and retention, there are 3 types of recruitment that they do. And so general recruitment is looking for parents for fosters of, any child. Child specific recruitment is like taking, having a child's bio and marketing the looking for fosters that way. And targeted recruitment is, looking at the demographics of your fosters and then figuring out how you can find people like that in the community. What they recommend if they're running ads, is to spend 15% on general recruitment because it's the least effective of all of them. I thought this was really interesting. Child specific recruitment is more, they get more bang for the buck. So they say that to spend 20% of their budget on that. Targeted recruitment is where they really focus the efforts and the funding. And we can do this in animal welfare as well. So one of the, I live in the DC area and we're in Fairfax, and I was working with a rescue, and the rescue was right on the line of DC. They were in Arlington, which is basically right next to the city. And so they had some long stay dogs who had really, a lot of them had gotten reactive or had been reactive. But all of the people that were their supporter base lived in this area that was very populous and, was really tough for dogs who were really reactive. So what we did was we did some targeted Facebook posts, and then we boosted them to this area here out in the West, the Loudoun County area, where people have land, where, it's, there's, more space between houses, where there's a lot of single family homes. And that was helpful. We found a difference in the supporters, and we were able to get a lot more of the dogs into foster and adoptive homes in places where they were, set up for success. A comprehensive recruitment plan. This is something they use in child welfare as well. Basically, like a marketing plan for the year of these are all the things we're going to do to recruit fosters and adopters. And then also post boosting, which I highly recommend, especially if you're doing some kind of urgent campaign. It can be really effective in boosting, getting your posts seen by a lot more people. And I think that was, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Kelly. I love that targeted and boosting posts. That's something that we don't always think about. So in closing slide is, we wanted to leave you all with a checklist. I know we're throwing a lot of resources at you all, and hopefully that's helpful. And thank you, Allison, for putting them in the chat. And they will also be available on Maddie's Pet Forum. You'll be able to have a link to that after this. But just a takeaway for this checklist, if you're looking at, if you're a destination shelter and you feel like your organization is working really, really hard, but you're still not able to help all the dogs and cats that are being pled to you daily, something that, and again, everyone has room to improve, something to go through. So our first part was talking about analyzing data, get a baseline, know where you're at. Really scrutinize both your foster and adoption programs. So looking at it through the lens of the people that are interacting with you. Barrier busting, not just your policies, but also your procedures. So how easy it is to interact with you, how quick your response times are. Do you have blanket policies that no matter what dog or cat people are adopting, they have to go through and jump through all these hoops, versus a more customized, individualized process that can speed through some of those. So some of maybe, quote, your easier pets can speed through that longer process, perhaps. The urgency and the knowledge, so behavior knowledge, medical knowledge, is widespread in your organization, not just with a select few. So the cross training. We talked a lot about marketing. So doing that marketing audit or that check, from everything from your pet profiles of long stays to figuring out how to fast track animals through. So different strategies through marketing, making sure all pets have an exit plan or an adoption foster plan. Innovative adoptions. So thinking back on our basics, everything from basic adoption and fostering all the way to more advanced strategies, and really leaning in and embracing the matchmaking component. I think it's really important, that individualized approach. Having an urgent messaging rollout plan. So even if you do have the space to take in animals, that you also have a shared sense of urgency with your partners. And repeat. So going through this is not a one-time thing. There are organizations that probably have to do this monthly to just make sure that they're hitting all of these checklist boxes. And there's probably more that we didn't even include. So just, you're only in trouble when you feel like you've done everything you can and all the things. There will always be hope if you always have room in your organization to improve, and you believe that there's always more to learn and to evolve. So that is all we have today. But I know we have a question, right? At least one. All right. So Meg asks, do you have any tips or tricks that you have had with any negative feedback or backlash from local communities when people see how many animals are coming from out of state versus in state? I'd be happy to answer that. And Kelly, feel free, to add in. But I would say, my organization's in a similar boat, in the sense that we are actually in a position where we are taking more in from outside of our general community than we are within our community. And I think every organization is going to be different. We only got to that point because of the state of our municipal shelter. We make it really clear to our community and to our followers that our local first is always our priority. So if there was an emergency that happened, or a huge number of parvo puppies that came into our city shelter for that day, that would be our priority. Our city and our 5 counties around us is our priority, and we make that known to the general public. We also let them know too the progress that we've made, and we celebrate the wins of, look how great our community is, that we are in this situation, and that local first is our approach, but we actually have the bandwidth to help other communities. So I think transparency is the key there. That I think people will make their own assumptions based on what they see. But if you share the numbers and let them know, that, and I'm not sure if this is your situation, but if your medical and sort of behavior challenges at your local facility are your biggest priority, or you have a very strong relationship there, highlighting that, but also say, we have done so great as a community, thanks to all of you, that we have more adoption and foster bandwidth than what's locally here. And we are able to help other communities, and sharing how dire it is in other places too. So you're not going to please everyone, but I will say that things get definitely better when you're transparent about your approach. And that there is a very strong sort of local sort of loyalty in the work. So, Kelly, I don't know if you had anything to add.
That was basically exactly what I was going to say. Just that when something like that happens, it's like, I think our first instinct is to stop telling people, but that's actually the exact opposite. Transparency is really what's going to build that trust, and really sitting back and thinking, like, why, what are your reasons for doing certain things, and how can you message that to your audience? But that was perfect. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And again, stay tuned to Maddie's Pet Forum, where we're going to start a link or conversation thread, and you have access to the link to see this presentation as well as resources. So thank you again. Feel free to contact Kelly and I with any specific questions, and we are really happy to spend this afternoon with you. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all so much.